Okay, welcome everyone. Nice to see all our speakers here. My name is Amanda O'Rourke. I am the co-chair of the Children Play and Nature Committee. And today I have the distinct honor of starting us off today with a land acknowledgement. I'm joining from Toronto, Canada today, so I will acknowledge the traditional land on which Toronto sits. This land has been the site of human activity for 15,000 years. This land is the territory of the Huron-Wendat and Petun First Nations, the Chippewa, the Anishinaabe, and the Haudenosaunee, and most recently the Mississaugas of the Credit River. Toronto is home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to live and work on this territory. We are also mindful of broken covenants, the importance of seeking truth and justice, and this need to strive to make right with all our relations. So I will now hand it off to my very capable moderator, who is Leticia Lozano. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Amanda. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. As Amanda said, my name is Leticia Lozano. I'm from Masia Studio, and I'm joining today from Mexico City on behalf of the Children Play and Nature Committee of the World Urban Parks. So I'll be your moderator today for the webinar Play and Resilience Amid COVID-19 Part 2. I'd like to acknowledge the co-chairs of the Children Play and Nature Standing Committee, Julie Guimond from Calgary Parks and Amanda O'Rourke from 880 Cities in Toronto. Our next hour will be about supporting each other across our borders and challenge the boundaries in every context, as we all continue to embark on making life as normal and wonderful for our children as it can be. I'll be sharing you my screen in a minute. There, you can see it. Okay, so before we start, we just have some housekeeping. So please mute your phone or microphone when you are not speaking. If you have a question, use the Q&A tab at the bottom of the screen. If you want to make a comment, use the chat box. And if you are experiencing audio feedback, please turn off your computer speakers. Okay, so our hope for this webinar today is that you are inspired with the stories and ideas that our fantastic speakers will be sharing, and ideas of hope and resilience during these extraordinary times. We hope that the examples of resilience during this time move and inspire you even more to continue to advocate for active and outdoor play at home and in parks and nature. And that the world's park and recreation professionals are united together in the sharing of ideas and expertise in the mission to help heal all families in the world. So we hope that you learn a lot. We hope that you get all motivated. And just a reminder, this webinar is brought to you by the Children Play and Nature Committee of World Urban Parks, World Parks Academy, EPLI, and Indiana University. So that means that our participants have the ability to collect CEUs today with this link. So you can get more information in that link. And just to introduce our speakers, we will have Megan Talarowski from Studio Ludo, Nathan Whiteye from Recreation Aotearoa, Scott Shinton from Tunquay Design Initiative, and Jason Tyndall from Nature Play SA. If we have time at the end, we'll have a time for like Q&A. And these are our amazing panelists today. So I'm presenting Megan first. So Megan from Studio Ludo is the founder and executive director of Studio Ludo. She has degrees in architecture and landscape architecture, almost 20 years of experience in the design field, and is a certified playground safety inspector. Her research focuses on how the design of play environments impacts physical health and social behavior, and has been presented at conferences worldwide. Her work has been featured by the New York Times, The Atlantic, NPR, Medium, Next City, Landscape Architecture Magazine, and World Landscape Architecture Magazine. Welcome, Megan. I'll stop sharing my screen and then off to you.
Okay. Can you see that okay? Leticia, is that fine? Okay. Welcome everybody. My name is Megan Talarowski. I'm the founder and executive director of Studio Ludo. We're a Philadelphia-based nonprofit whose mission is building better play through research, design, and advocacy. And we're excited to share our PlayPACs project with you today, which is how we're supporting play and resiliency during COVID-19. Studio Ludo was founded about 5 years ago. As I said, our focus and our foundation is actually research. We're really curious about how people of all ages play, and we're really fascinated with why play here but not there. We got our start in the City of London. Over 6 months, we visited 45 playgrounds across the city, and we picked 16 to study. I actually had my research assistant, my 1-year-old daughter, with me while I was doing the research. We ultimately collected data on the play behaviors of over 18,000 people. The playgrounds there were phenomenal. This is Victoria Park in London. It has a massive play mountain that you could slide and climb up the front of. It had huge climbing towers that invited people of all ages to play. I would see runners that would be out in Olympic Park for their daily run, and they would catch sight of this thing and kind of look around and then scramble up to the top and run through the tunnels. But equally, play isn't that complicated. Something as simple as a massive zip line shooting over some boulders can also invite people to play. So we have actually collected data in New York City as well. So we have a collection of 25,000 people, and we were just about to launch a national study of playgrounds. It's gotten pushed back to next summer, but we're gonna look at 60 play environments across the United States and see how design influences play behavior in all ages. But we also take all that data and it informs how we design places to play. Sometimes we go out of the box. We do really whimsical, strange things like thinking of reusing construction waste and making a giant octopus that activates a vacant lot in Philly. We think about height, like what about giant tree houses and huge slides that can bring all whole families together. Or even small invitations, like in a library setting. The libraries in Philadelphia are the largest after-school provider, and a lot of kids come straight from school and they have a lot of pent-up energy. So can even really small invitations get kids moving and connect kids and families through play. We also think a lot about advocating for play specifically. People think a lot of times that play is just for kids, but we feel that play is for all ages, and it's a really great way for kids and their caregivers to connect. And especially in a time of COVID, we think that's incredibly important. So we work with a lot of our clients just rethinking what is play, who is play for, where can it happen? We do a lot with play visioning with cities and different consultants, thinking about how to infuse play into the everyday, like having playful seating or thinking about different art installations throughout cities or specific projects. We also just invite people to understand that play is pretty weird. If you have the opportunity to ride on a giant purple Tyrannosaurus Rex, you should just take it. And that play opportunities occur everywhere. And something as simple as a swing, if you grab hold of it and start swinging as hard as you can, it'll open up and bring back all kinds of play memories that you probably forgot from your childhood. So these are the kind of spaces that we would love to be in, that we miss. And PlayPACs is sort of our response to the fact that we can't be in these spaces. So we spend a lot of time in play areas, seeing how space supports play behavior. We think a lot about designing places like that, but how do we continue to spark play and joy in a time of crisis? So our PlayPACs initiative actually came from a kind of a personal crisis of my own. I went with my small children who are 4 and 6 to our local playground, and there was a giant sign saying closed due to COVID-19, and there was yellow caution tape all over it. And we realized that play is now a vector of disease. So a place that had a lot of funness and was part of our daily activity is off limits. So what does that mean? And for those of us that build places to play, can we bring play back to families? So we thought really specifically about bringing items and activities straight to families in Philadelphia. So we thought about activities. We looked at potentially a week, or ultimately we created 30 days worth of activities. We have a really interesting array of skill sets within our office. One of our staff members used to do a lot of play work at a local playground, and she's also really handy with toilet paper roll. So she knew like 30 different ways to repurpose a toilet roll. So we looked at what are everyday materials that you have around your house, things that you might think of as trash, and can you use those for play? Can you just think strategically about fun and silly ways to play? We used a lot of googly eyes because googly eyes are a way to, I don't know, it just kind of like breaks the ice, and everything's more fun with googly eyes. So the goal of the play packs was to collect the play materials that would support those different types of play activities. We reached out to a number of local partners, and they gave us all kinds of materials like glue and clay and crayons and markers. And then we just went into production mode, and we started stuffing bags full of all those different materials. We also reached out to a local nonprofit called Treehouse Books, which collects used books around the city of Philadelphia and connects them to like-minded nonprofits. So within the play pack itself, it was very simple. It was a plastic bag. It had a week's worth of activities, and each week it changed. And then all of the support materials that you would need to do those crafts, like construction paper, crayons and markers, sidewalk chalk. We didn't have activities related to specifically to sidewalk chalk, but that's just such a nice way to communicate with your neighbors. Everybody had a book. And then we reached out to our mayor's office, and we thought at first that we would connect the play packs with local food distribution sites. But then they put us in contact with a number of community development corporations and churches and people that were serving their community at a very local level. So we were able to deliver directly to some of those organizations, or they came to our office to pick up the packs. So it was very simple. It was a plastic bag, so you could easily see all the stuff that was inside it. It was easy to carry and hold. And we actually gave away all of those play activities that we created for the packs. We created a resource online where the 30 days of activities were available for free. And then we sent out an ask far and wide saying, you know, if you are interested in supporting this, or if you enjoyed the free activities, please donate. And we received almost $5,000 in monetary donations. We had about $2,000 worth of in-kind material donations. And then our studio actually donated $5,000 of in-kind labor to create the packs, to deliver the packs, and to make all the activity sheets. So ultimately, over 2 months, we created 2,600 packs, and we supported 12 communities across the city of Philadelphia. We made sure to have a pretty good distribution to support families across the city. And I'm excited to say that this looks like it's going to be continued as part of our Summer Play Streets program. Philadelphia has one of the oldest Play Streets programs in the country, and they block off local streets. Neighbors can request to have a street blocked off. There's a play captain that basically just supervises, and it gives kids space to play within the city. And then this is nice. It's a nice support and prop to help foster play and just give really simple items. It was really important to us that the play packs were pretty simple and just had, like, it wasn't overly complicated. You don't need to have a lot to just spark play. And we thought there's a lot of poverty within our city, and particularly in the time of COVID. And if families are struggling to pay rent or to even get basic necessities, spending money on bubbles or chalk or crayons is not top of the list. So if we could offer this small pack of materials, it puts a smile on people's faces. It gives kids something to do, a little activity that they can do with their grown-up or not. It might give the grown-ups a little bit of space so they can have some mental support and a little break, or maybe give them time to work. So in everything that we do, we think strategically, not just about how the kids are supported through play, but also how we can support the mental and social health of the whole family. So until COVID is over and we get to go back to the places that are so beloved, until we get the opportunity to climb a high structure and leap off into the sand, and get to be with our friends and neighbors in play. We think that the play packs are a great and simple intervention that remind people that play doesn't have to happen in a place. Play can happen in your house or just outside the front door. It can be an invitation to throw on your wellies and stomp in the mud, or look a little closer, build a stick house, or to just use some chalk and draw your own garden. If you wanted to know more about the Playpacks project, feel free to visit our website at www.studioludo.org/playpacks. All of those play activity sheets, as well as a number of other resources that we've created for our local library that are specifically related to nature play and talk about creek sheds and local flora and fauna. Those are all available for free through that link. And then if you're so inclined, you can offer a donation, and that will continue to support families throughout the summer here in Philadelphia. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Megan. That was amazing and very inspiring. Yay for the play packs. Our next speaker is Nathan Waitai from Recreation Aotearoa. So Nathan is the co-founder of Whanau Ora Fitness, a free community exercise program in 4 Hot Valley locations, a musician of 30 years, a proud koro of 9 mokopuna, a loving dad of 5, and an awesome husband. He worked as national facilitator for Ngā Taonga Takaro, a Maori traditional game, to 14 Maori health providers around Aotearoa for 4 years, based at Kukiri Marae. He has a passion in Whakawhanaunga, which means building and maintaining win-win relationships, which inspires him in his work, helping to develop pathways and transitions through on-the-job qualification. Kia ora matua, Nathan.
Tēnā koe, Leticia. Kia ora tātou e te whānau. I'm just going to share my screen. Can you see my mokos up there, my mokopuna? Just put a thumbs up if you can. Yeah, ka pai. So just that picture there, this is where we live at the moment, Te Whanganui Ātara, or Wellington. This is known in Māori as Te Ika a Maui, or Te Upoko o Te Ika, the head of the fish. And I'll explain a bit more about Aotearoa, New Zealand through my presentation. So I'll just... So kia ora tātou, kai tātou nui ka nui taku whakawhitai I te aki mai tātou I tēnei huihuinga. Ko Leticia, rātou, ko Amanda, ko Julie, tēnei te mihi kia koutou. Me te tautoko here, Carl Nisbet, o Recreation Aotearoa. Kai te mihi, kai te mihi. Ka te mihi, mino tātou, tēnei te mauri kā tū, te mauri kā oho, te mauri kā rewa, eke pānuku, eke tangaroa, whakatū tā rewa I te rangi. Uhi wero, taumai te mauri, harama te toki, ko whakatangatanga I te rā, haungi e, hui e, tai ki e. Kia ora whānau, so, just take that back there. So I'm called Nathan Waitai Taku Ingoa, Nathan Waitai's my name. I partner up with Recreation Aotearoa. My job is actually with Skills Active Aotearoa as the Industry Development Advisor for Sport and Exercise. So thank you for having me on this webinar, and it's been interesting with COVID, learning how to learning how to use all these flash devices, and so hopefully I can talk to it. Okay. So the industry that I'm in is we are on-the-job qualifications, so people that are working in the industry in aquatics, snow sport, exercise, outdoor recreation, performing arts, sport, and ngā mahi a te rehia. A lot of our qualifications can be done on the job, so that's what we specialise in. So just introduction of myself, ko waio. ko Hikurangi te maunga. So this is my maunga. So when we say ko waio in te reo Māori or te ao Māori, that's our indigenous people of Aotearoa. It's from what waters do I descend. So everything connects back to the land, the whenua. And as you can see, the maunga there is Hikurangi, which is one of my tupuna, one of our ancestors. For Māori, we acknowledge our the land as a living ancestor. And Hikurangi is a special mountain. As you can see, it's got 2 peaks. As I go through my pepeha or a mihi, how we introduce ourselves in Aotearoa, I'll explain how our mountain has significance for our people in Ngāti Porou. The picture below there is the ātea, or the landing where we acknowledge our tupuna, our ancestors. And one thing with Ngāti Porou, or where I'm from, is we're the first tribe to see the sun as it rises from the east. So, ko Hikurangi te maunga. Ko Waipu te Awa, this is our river from where I come from, a very spiritual river. A lot of our people pay respect and tribute to our river, a lot of spiritual connection through Te Taha Wairua. So Nukutai Memeha is our waka. So if I go back to the slide of Hikurangi, our waka was pulled up. One of the stories we tell is it sits up here. You see my laser pointer? So the waka is actually in a lake up here to Māori people from Ngāti Porou. So the waka that fished up the North Island or of Aotearoa, we call it Te Ika a Maui. So Maui is our descendant, and if I go back to that slide there, this is him fishing up the North Island. So Te Ika a Maui. The South Island of New Zealand is known as Te Waka o Maui. So the whole connection up to our ancestors through storytelling, or pūrākau. Ko Mangahānea te marae, this is my marae. So this is our ancestral house, our whare nui, our whare tipuna. This whare is called Hene Tāpora, one of our ancestors, Wahine Toa, a woman of strength. There's a lot of stories that relate back to Hene Tāpora, and she is one of our ancestors that is from Ngāti Porou. So that's inside that whare nui is a lot of my ancestors, these photos in there. We went up there not so long ago to visit and stay. One of the things we do as Māori is we have a noho marae, where we go back and visit our marae and tell the stories of our people. So yeah, beautiful marae. All the carvings acknowledge all our tupuna. So Ngāti Porou, if you can see my pointer, Ngāti Porou is up here in the East Cape of Aotearoa, New Zealand. So I live here in Wellington, but my people, or you'll hear Māori speak of our bones or our ancestors. My mother comes from up here, and my father comes from over here. So the connection up through the motu, or the island of the North Island, that's our connection back to the land. So the kaupapa, or the purpose of what I'm talking about today, is Ngā Taonga Tākaro, Māori traditional games. I've got a whakatauki up there, which is tama tū, tama ora, tama noho, tama mate. So it's Māori spoke in proverbs, and that the translation of that is, if the boy stands, he'll be well. If the boy sits, he will diminish or die. So it's a relevant whakatauki or proverb for today's talk, as it's about movement and keeping ourselves moving all the time, and this whakatauki or proverb is thousands of years old. So it's one of our ancestors who came up with that whakatauki, so it's been around for a long time. On the left, you'll see what we call tū kohatu is one of the tākaro that we use. So over here, where this tū kohatu, we stopped with our mokopuna or our grandchildren at Lake Taupo, which is right in the middle of the North Island. And this game here, which you all know is just rock stacking, but for Māori, we connect our whakapapa or our family ties to our connection back to our ancestors through these games. So one thing I teach with my grandchildren is where they come from, and we connect by engaging with the whenua or the land and engaging with the water. And there's atua connected to all our resources to the land. There's Papa Tuanuku, or Mother Nature, Mother Earth Mother. Rangi Nui is the Sky Father. And connecting all these rocks, I tell the stories to my grandchildren of our connection back to the land and back to where we come from. So they always have a connection no matter what. So that's where we talk about whakapapa. Atua is the name given to Māori gods. I don't like using the word gods. We just name them atua. So as I mentioned, the one with Earth Mother and Sky Father, Papa Tuanuku and Rangi Nui. And as I go through the slides, you'll see it all connect up. Here's one of my mokopuna, Belle. And so I was teaching her here tū kohatu and teaching her our connection back to our family tree. So I'm not just teaching her how to stack rocks. Just by watching her and observing her, I just gave them instructions of, you've got to try and stack 10 rocks. And I did a game with, this is my other mokopuna here, Monaco, and each of them had to go at tū kohatu, and just by observation, you can see their personality coming through. So as you can see, Belle, she's very determined, and I know from a very young age, just by watching without speaking, that once she sets her mind or a goal on something, a purpose, she'll go for it no matter what, and she never gave up. And she was the first to obviously get her rocks stacked up to 10. But at the same time, I wasn't just stacking rocks, I'm teaching her about her whakapapa, where she comes from. Each one of these rocks is one of her ancestors. So through talking to her, I'm teaching her our heritage through play. And that's a key thing with Ngā Taonga Tākaro. Behind here, this is one of the trips we did up. This is my wife, Leilani. This is me here. This awa here, or the river, is Te Whanganui River, which is where my wife is from. Also, I have connection back there as well. So for Māori, it's always important to take our grandchildren back to where they come from. And we tell the stories of Wanganui Awa. So there's a whakatauki or proverb from Wanganui, which is ko au te awa, ko te awa ko au, which is I am the river and the river is me. So also having that connection. So this is us on Wanganui Awa. We did a hikoi up there. We did waka ama, or waka is going on a canoe. And there's my moko doing his tū kohatu. So always teaching them the importance of family and connection. And the atua of the sea or the river is Tangaroa or Hine Moana, depending if you're acknowledging the male or female element. And so that's how the connection happens. And then by going on awa, we're connecting with our ancestors. We took some rangatahi or some young whānau family up with us, so that we're not just telling the stories to ourselves, we're also sharing it to the wider community and telling them the stories of our ancestors. So for my wife, taking our mokopuna to our awa, and we also visited her marae. This is Ruaka in Ranana, up the river. So that's the her marae there. So when we take our grandchildren there, we're telling them the stories also of their heritage and where they come from, and they can come back here anytime. This is known as our Tūranga Waiwai, which is a place that we stand strong and know our self-identity and where we come from. And I always love looking at this picture because it's already inbred, telling the stories, and our mokos will tell the story for ages. So once we're gone, they'll take their kids there and so on. That's how we carry on the stories and passing down our family heritage. Over here also, so this is Monaco here, taking a photo. So using modern day devices to connect to the whenua. He always walks around in bare feet to connect to papa, or the land, so that he has that natural connection to the land. So he just follows in his koro's footsteps, because I'm exactly the same. Over here is Ruapehu, which is my wife's maunga, and also I have a connection to that maunga as well. And every time we drive past there, we tell them the stories of all the stories around the area. This here is some whānau up in Tauranga. This maunga here, or this mountain, is Moao. So we connected to that maunga or mountain, and we took some whānau up there, some family, and told the stories up there as well. So the incidental outcome is play or physical activity. But the purpose of taking our people to these pa sites or sacred sites for our ancestors is to teach them the stories. So the incidental outcome is going out and connecting with the land. So we call it hikoi whenua. This one here is also for Māori. It was, what was our purpose of going out and visiting the mountains and going out in the bush? Is to collect kai, or food and sustenance. So oranga kai, so food is not just for our body, it's connection to our wairua or our spiritual connection by teaching them about atua. It's hinengaro, which is our mindset, and telling them the story so they know they can pass on that information. Whānau, which is family, taking our family, as you can see our family here, and tinana, it's food for the body. So we always think holistically, and oranga is a collective health from a spiritual and mental and holistic approach to wellness. So this is us at night time. I was taking my mokos out to teaching them how to go eeling and catch tuna. And there's a funny story behind this one, because we found an eel in my moko here. This is Molela, this one over here. Yeah, he saw the eel and I said, go, catch it. And he just dabbed it in the water, the spear, and the eel took off. And he goes, I says, well, why didn't you get it? And he goes, oh, I didn't know if it would stay. And I went, well, it doesn't want to get caught. So it took off, and he ended up, that's a story that we'll always tell, is that he didn't catch it, but the kids are already telling the stories and connecting that back to their family heritage. And obviously I take them out to collect kai moana or seafood and tell them the stories, connections back to the water. And there's a koura or a crayfish that we caught. Oh, my slideshow's frozen. Okay, so my PowerPoint's now frozen, so I'll try and restart it. Wait there. Okay, so I'll just move back to where I was. Sorry, my computer decided to have a morning fit. So this is us connecting them back, and each time they build one, we teach them about the importance of whānau or family, and that they will always have a connection. Being a rock, they'll always be solid, and they have that connection back to the land and back to their family. This is us visiting our family that live in Orlando, but we met up in Los Angeles, and we walked up the hill. And this is my other mokopuna over there in America, Jack, and I taught him the connection back to the rocks as well, and taught him how to tell stories through collecting rocks and stacking them. So Mātauranga Māori was never written, it was always spoken. So Tupuna Pūrākau, which is written over here, was telling stories. Tikanga is our basis of guidelines on protocols on how we conduct ourselves. Karakia is what I started off with, is acknowledging the land, acknowledging the people on this webinar, and making sure everyone's okay. More Tia is another form of learning that we use as a chant to teach people. Waiata is singing. Ngā taonga tākaro is showing them traditional Māori games, like I was showing you. Waka ama and kapahaka is also connecting back to the whenua and performance and dance here. So with playing Ngā taonga tākaro, Kiorahi is one of the games that we teach, and connecting them back to their ancestors. This was one that we had down at the beach, so we thought it was good to play Kiorahi and actually play it on the beach and connect with Tangaroa and Hene Moana. It's a game where each one of those, where you see this here, you got to touch one of those and then run into the middle and put it down. So here the kids are touching them. But connecting on the beach was different for the kids because they loved it. They had to play with no shoes, so then they had a direct connection back to the land. I found that working in the schools, a lot of our kids wear shoes, and so there's a disconnect already to the land. By taking their shoes off, they have a grounding, as we all know, and it helps them with their anxiety when they do their any exams or teaching at school. So I always try and teach them the connection, how important it is back to the land. This is a permanent papatākaro for Kiorahi, which is up in Flaxmere. The po, obviously the rākau or wood, and each one of them tell a story, and this is one of our groups that we took up there. So we've got Waka ama. So this is when we took them up to the National Waka ama Championship and connecting our kids back to the water and telling the stories of how our people came to Aotearoa. So there's always a connection back to the land and how we ended up here in Aotearoa. And this is just me when I was in the schools. Kids are so influential, and when you can nurture them and connect them back to playing outside, days I would turn up and it's raining and they go, "Oh, matua, can we still go out?" And I said, "Yes, of course," because we're connecting with atua. And they really enjoyed being able to engage outside. I'd show them all different tākaro and how they could connect it back to their own families and where they came from, not just Aotearoa. As you can see, there's a big diversity of kids that engaged, and the one thing that I always observed is that they were always happy. For them, they being inside a classroom all day, but once they got to come outside and have fun, I was able to positively make an impact on their behavioural change and how it is connecting to the land. And also, kapahaka was one of the other things that we do. So my mokopuna in this group, this is their school, and they're singing the songs of their ancestors. They're learning songs to pay homage to their ancestors, and the performance of kapahaka to our whānau around the motu is just one of the ways that we give back to our ancestors. And it's always been a tradition.
Nathan, that sounds amazing, but we need to go a little bit more quick so then the other panelists have the time to speak as well.
Yep, that's fine. So last slide. So I'll stop it there because my screen is frozen again. But the main thing that I wanted to cover is that connection back to the whenua is very important for our whānau, our families, and that in the COVID-19 response is being together as a family is normal for Māori. So it's actually hasn't been a big stress for Māori because we're used to being together. And when it comes to playing, oh, there we go. There's a slide there, all our whānau connecting up together. So yeah, thank you for your time. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. Kia ora.
Thank you very much, Nathan. That was very inspiring just to learn how play and nature are intertwined with culture, community, and family history. It's just amazing. Our next speaker is Scott Shinton from Kunque Design Initiative. Scott is a landscape designer at Kunque Design Initiative, a community development and design nonprofit based in Los Angeles and Nairobi. He is passionate about working with residents to co-design socio-ecologically just spaces with large public realm projects in the Coachella Valley and Philadelphia, currently on the boards. Scott holds a BA from Yale University and a Master of Landscape Architecture from the University of Virginia, where he received the Benjamin C. Howland Traveling Fellowship to study the landscape systems of domestic entrepreneurship and urban agriculture in Havana, Cuba. Welcome, Scott.
Hi, thank you. Can you see this screen?
Yes, we can.
Well, okay, great. Thanks for joining, everyone. As Leticia said, my name is Scott Shinton, and I am a landscape design associate at Kunque Design Initiative, or as we like to call it for short, KDI. KDI is a nonprofit community development and design organization, and we have offices in Los Angeles, Nairobi, and also Coachella and Stockholm. And we're a collection of planners and landscape architects, engineers, and community organizers. And our mission is to partner with under-resourced communities to really advance equity and activate unrealized potential in neighborhoods and cities. And we accomplish this mission through advocacy, research, planning, and build work. Our work focuses on addressing neighborhood inequities that you can see quite clearly in this slide. For example, in underserved communities through a community-led process that we like to call participatory design or co-design. Like you see here, this is a little friend of ours helping us design a pocket park in Los Angeles. While much of our work is based in communities in the Coachella Valley and Nairobi, creating networks of new public spaces that we call the productive public space networks, like this in the Coachella Valley. These are all new public spaces that we're in the process of designing and building. And some of the projects we've actually built. We also work at the scale of mobility plans. So trying to solve issues of inequity in public transportation. Today, I'm actually going to talk more about a project that's closer to home, that's a bit of a different scale and a bit more tactile and flexible. And that focuses on bringing temporary public spaces to poor parts of Los Angeles as an act of advocacy. We're calling this the Play Streets program. So I'll be speaking to the original program that we started about 5 years ago, and also kind of how we've adapted that program during this time to create something called the Play It Safe Kit, which is really a COVID version of the Play Streets program. So as I've already stated, one of our biggest goals at KDI is to address inequities through design. So through this, we want to kind of level the playing field for communities that have less access to things like public parks and good public transportation options, among other things. And in big bureaucratic cities like Los Angeles, it's obviously not possible to change the built environment overnight. And in the low-income communities that we work in, development happens at a pretty glacial pace. So when we started this Play Streets program, when we started thinking about what it could be, we really wanted to address this issue of lack of access to good public spaces and nature. And we were looking for ways to build the momentum needed to move and influence policy, as well as regulation and political will, all in the effort of changing the built environment in the end. So with that long-term vision in mind of increasing park equity, we sought to take advantage of one thing that LA has a lot of, which is streets. So streets take up 18% of LA's total landmass. So we pitched this idea of bringing public spaces to park-poor neighborhoods in LA to the LA Department of Transportation. And when I say Play Streets, what does that mean? I mean, from the beginning, we sort of envisioned it as a neighborhood block that residents can temporarily close to car traffic and transform it into a place where neighbors of all ages can gather and play in any way that they want to. So the end goal would really be to transform streets into places for play, and in the process improve public health, neighborhood safety, as well as community cohesion. The Play Street is obviously not a new concept, but in car-centric cities like LA, playing in the street can be seen as a novelty of the past and also potentially unsafe. Luckily, during when we were pitching this to the city, LADOT was also thinking about ways to transform the street to be more multifunctional and to serve a range of users and not just cars. So with the city on board, we launched a pilot program in 2015 to create a uniquely Los Angeles version of the program that would look at play in its broadest sense and as a program for all ages and all people in the city. So because we wanted to make sure this program worked first and foremost for the communities who need it most, we analyzed the GIS data available on health outcomes, population density, access to park space, and income to determine where these high needs areas in the city were. So after selecting these neighborhoods of Koreatown, South LA, Watts, Boyle Heights, and Pacoima, we engaged residents in a participatory process that we use in all of our projects, asking residents how, when, and where they want to play. And this ended up resulting in a really streamlined application process for residents to easily close down streets free of cost, the applications were available in many languages and in print form and also on the web. So this was our portal where residents could go in and apply to have their street turned into a Play Street. So outside of that kind of planning process of trying to figure out how residents could close down their streets, we also worked on developing this box of play, which in essence is a trailer full of playful elements designed to improve access to play for all ages, interests, and abilities. And when developing this box of play, we started this robust phase of play research. And one of the most surprising and enlightening things that we found was that free, unstructured, undirected play has incredible benefits for brain development, collaborative skills, interest discovery, creativity, and protects against the effects of pressure and stress. And not surprisingly, that these opportunities have greatly reduced over the past 30 years. So because of this, we found that free play opportunities was something that we wanted to increase in this Play Streets program, and we felt that this would fill a lot of the gaps in current play and not create any sort of redundant areas of play. So when I say free play, I really mean not organized play. So free play is different than games or organized play because organized play has rules and goals that are externally imposed and are often competitive in nature. So through Play Streets, we really sought for ways to increase exposure to free play like you see in these images. So with all of those goals in mind, the main element we developed that would go into that box of play was this wobble, which in essence is a modular play element that's kind of this big Lego. And it can facilitate many different activities at a moment's notice. So they connect to each other on 4 of their 6 sides and can be arranged to sort of change how we view the street. So, you know, we worked with a local fabricator to make them light, but also, you know, durable so they could stand up to children throwing them around on the street, and also the elements like the sun and, you know, the street being made of asphalt. So after developing the design over the course of a couple years, we launched the Wobble and Play Streets at the same time, and you can kind of see how these modular play elements unfold on the street in many different ways. So in this image, you can see a kind of topographical mountain forming and kids climbing them. Kids use them as a slide. They kind of dunked it into this plastic pool. They're used as this big seesaw. It can be used as a place to lounge underneath these shade sails. It can be used as a place to socialize underneath umbrellas that plug into the wobbles. So over the past couple of years, it's been a very successful program. And I'm sure as you're looking at these images, you're wondering, like, how does this apply to the current state of affairs? I think that, you know, these wobbles were designed to be flexible. And one of the criteria was that they could transform the street into a new place. And it could be used as a landscape strategy for a myriad of purposes. So in its DNA, we can sort of mold it to become whatever we want it to be. So we redeveloped this box of play kits that you see on the screen to become a Play It Safe kit of parts, which is a collection of elements that can be deployed on the street to support safe social distancing, but also service delivery, and also obviously bring joy to the primary public space available to residents during this time. And the main elements of this kit are a social distancing path, so these little vinyl stickers that demonstrate appropriate physical distance on the street. The wobble can be used as a barricade or a divider. Informational signage can be plugged into the wobbles to display COVID-related information or neighborhood-specific information. Hand sanitation stations can be plugged into the wobbles as well, along with art elements, and this plane system, which can provide flexible street furnishings. So obviously, this kit can do many different things, and for communities, we want them to decide what to use these elements for. So if they're prioritized, their priorities are service related, we can mold the system to create a street that prioritizes service. There's another typology that prioritizes wellness, which really creates a joyful and safe pedestrian environment. And then more of the late stage implementation would be this hands-free play environment, which would support the transition from extreme social distancing to regular daily life. So I'll just show a few different layouts that we are currently working with. This street closure would be a partial closure and would prioritize service. So it has areas for rapid on-street delivery, sidewalk extensions, ground markers, and then allows parking. This is a similar layout, but does not allow parking and allows like more room to breathe. So if you have more people expected at an event, you could go with this, this scenario. This scenario prioritizes wellness. So this is really meant to create an inviting pedestrian environment while also, you know, maintaining standards of social distancing while walking and standing. And then the last example that I'm going to show is this full closure that prioritizes play. So you can see how the wobbles are organized on the street to, you know, keep with social distancing, but also is very playful. So in all of these cases, you know, our goals are really to prioritize the safety and well-being of the community in which the kid is just deployed, but they're also meant to promote the kind of free play that you see in these images. So with that in mind, thank you for your time. Love to answer any questions later on, and I will pass the baton to Jason.
Thank you, Scott. Those wobbles look really, really playful and amazing. Okay, well, last but not less important, we have now Jason Tyndall from Nature Play SA. Jason is the General Manager at Nature Play SA, a South Australian not-for-profit organization that is a leader in engaging families in nature through a multifaceted approach. Jason's experience extends across a vast range of disciplines, including on-ground management of conservation areas, youth leadership, community development, environmental education, ecology, and is father to 2 daughters. Jason's values, both professionally and personally, are centered around the role and value of nature in the lives of children and adults. However, more paramount is his belief to ensuring we communicate consistent nature-based messages and themes effectively, so to sow the seeds of a willingness to begin the journey of a long-lasting connection with the natural world. Welcome, Jason.
Thank you. I'll just get my screen up. Everyone can see that nice and clear?
Yes.
I'm assuming everyone's out there is nodding yes, because it looks like I can see it. So thanks so much for having me. Really interesting sitting back and listening to the very different perspectives around the world. Very inspiring. So thank you. I'm going to take you through the response of Nature Play SA, and that's Nature Play South Australia, to COVID-19. And we're a not-for-profit organisation, and it's been a challenging time, but we've also drawn a lot of opportunity out of what's COVID presented to us. So throughout the presentation, I'll keep it nice and short, but I'm going to pay particular reference to our online guide. So we produced an online guide for families that was 85 pages of resources, and I'm going to unpack that a little bit in the next couple of slides. So firstly, here in Australia, it's Reconciliation Week, and it's important for me to talk about reconciliation because I've worked with and continue to work with many Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders. And Reconciliation Week here is about acknowledging our Indigenous people, about acknowledging our shared stories, our shared histories, acknowledging the wounds of the past and how we're coming together for a road of reconciliation. And the land that I'm on today in South Australia, in Adelaide, is the traditional lands of the Kaurna people. And I want to acknowledge that because the spiritual connection to land and the spiritual connection through storytelling is something that has always inspired me. Since I was a kid, I played a lot of Aussie rules football, and I had a lot of mentors in Aboriginal sporting people. And I want to extend that acknowledgement and encourage you, wherever you're listening from or watching from, to think about where your country or your state and reflect on where you're at in terms of reconciliation. So just a quick snapshot of who Nature Play South Australia is. We're a not-for-profit organisation and we were established in 2014. Now, across Australian states and territories, there's 3 other Nature Play organisations, one in Western Australia, Queensland and Canberra. Here in SA, our vision is quite a simple one. It's about families and connecting them through nature, through outdoor learning and play. And that echoes through everything we do. And predominantly we work with the Education Department and the Environment Department, particularly in national parks. And our target audience isn't just children, but it extends to the family units. And that may be from infants all the way up to grandparents. And our main areas of work tend to be events. And events are, sometimes we hold small intimate events, wildflower walks, and others will have up to 9,000 people building cubbies and forts in forests. And it's quite incredible when you build that sort of atmosphere with people who are coming out to basically play with sticks and learn about the birds. And other facets of our organisation include mentoring schools, leaders, students, and also developing a range of initiatives and resources for our state government, particularly around helping families and the general population connect with nature, both in urban settings and in bush settings. And we're a very small team. It's a team of 7, but that's equivalent to 4 FTE. So to set the context of our response to COVID, both during and moving forward, I want to quote John Burroughs. "I go to nature to be soothed, healed and have my senses put in order." For me, this resonates really deeply, particularly in the time of crisis that we're currently in. But for a significant part of our population, it's just a romantic idea. And I don't think it should be. I think it should be something that is a social norm. And I think what Burroughs was saying here is that he goes to nature for his mental health and well-being. And when we look at mental health, well-being and the role that nature plays within it, it's often underestimated. And I think that's because it's not a concept that can be explained. It needs to be felt. And it's up to organisations like Nature Play and also some of our speakers that we've heard today about the amazing things they're doing, is to develop tools and develop programs that meet people where they are. They meet them where they are, and it makes the concept of going out into nature and feeling these benefits as something that's real and something that's doable. So that idea of mental health and well-being and having nature as a catalyst to that formed the basis of our approach to our COVID response. And also recognising that when we talk about nature and the benefits that it gives us for mental health and well-being, we're not talking just about the beyond. We're not talking just about wild places. We're talking about the windows of exposure to nature are everywhere. Home, neighbourhood, in the wild, in the bush. And all of those windows of exposure ultimately result in our overall connection to nature and the benefits we get from it. So I'll pay particular attention to home because all of these facets are relevant now and moving post-COVID. And I think post-COVID, we're going to be entering a healing phase as a nation, as a globe, as communities. But home, I've been home now for about 9 weeks. And we're only sort of just starting to come out of lockdown. Our restrictions are starting to lift, which has been a really interesting, quite surreal time in everyone's life. But being at home, I wouldn't be in my same state of mind now if I hadn't spent time out in my backyard with my daughters. But also, I've learned to develop a new way of listening. And I find myself outside tuning into the trees, tuning into the birds. Now here at the moment, it's 6:30 and I think I got up about 4 a.m. And any moment now, I'm going to hear the New Holland honeyeaters in my backyard. And what they're going to be telling me is they're going to sound an alarm call. And it's a predatory call to say there's a raptor, there's a cat. And I hear that every morning. And if I am to take the dog for a walk out in the neighbourhood at that time, I will see the raptors and I will see the cats. And if I go beyond, I'll start to learn more about different bird language, more about the rhythms of nature. And for me, that gives me great solace. It gives my mental health and my well-being something else to tune into. But how do we enable others to feel that type of connection and to get that type of benefit? Well, What we decided in our initial first phase of responding to COVID, and particularly to our audience, was to develop a family guide, which had the strong theme of mental health and wellbeing. And within that guide, we developed 7 themes that were accessible to everyone. And I say accessible, sometimes when we look at nature programs, they appear as if they're just for a certain cohort of people. And it was really important to us to present nature in a way that was holistic to the overall person. So these 7 elements, and I'll briefly run through them. So turn to nature, and in each one of these, we had the concept explained, we have benefits, and we also have a range of practical ideas that families can do. So turn to nature was very much about finding a daily sit spot, nature journaling, planting a native seedling and nurturing it, all at home. Balance screen time with green time. Recognise that there will and is likely to be an increase in technology. And it's important that we don't alienate families and people to say that we must stop all the screen time, it's excessive, but change the narrative to the quality and the diversity of technology. So some of the things that we have recommended within that component are things like download stargazing apps and learn about the constellations, about the planets, download bird apps, learn about the bird calls, learn about their eggs, learn about their nests, and making short films of nature in backyards. To keep active is obviously it's a really important element, physical activity to well-being, particularly at home when it can be easy to sit down a lot, be quite sedentary. So the sort of things that we have suggested, things like doing yoga outside, Pilates outside, doing dance routines. Now, I'm not much of a dancer myself, but my daughter is, and she makes that quite well known to the neighbourhood at times. But we've had, in seeing these types of things evolve at home, I'm realising just how relevant and integrated and accessible these things can be to the general population. Eat healthy, we very much had a focus on homegrown produce. And in the absence of homegrown produce, seasonal produce and cooking together, being together. Slowing down is very much about reading stories and reading poetry, sitting in the sun, starting a gratitude journal. Again, they're all accessible. And the other element we had put across these 7 components was whether or not it was a big backyard, a small backyard, whether or not it was a courtyard, whether or not it was an apartment, these things are still relevant. Rediscover Childhood was looking at bringing out the pots and pans, making the stews together, the mud pies, the old school elements of unstructured play, essentially, and stay connected. Stay connected, it's very much about letting the community know that we are all in this together, but painting rainbows and putting them in our windows, which we have lots through our neighbourhood, putting teddy bears in the windows. And my daughter loves walking the streets and finding those teddy bears and seeing a symbol of hope. So all these elements together holistically, with nature as a conduit, we're positioning to nurture mental health and well-being both now and into COVID. So the guide itself, so the online guide, it is a free online guide, was divided into 2 sections. The first section had all those 7 elements, and it also had the support available. So Lifeline, Beyond Blue, the Black Dog Institute, various mental health organisations. It had their advice that they'd put out there in terms of what do we need to consider to look after not only children's mental health, but adults as well. But elements in there about working from home. What can we do when we're working from home in terms of taking a break and incorporating nature? It might be looking at the clouds out the window. It might be taking a phone call outside. And section 2 was it delved deeper. It delved deeper into practical ideas and inspiration to do as a family. And some of those examples, got to jump here, is backyard critters. Now, it's easy to say to a family, go on a mini beast hunt or go on a bug hunt in your backyard. And for some, bugs can be quite a foreign thing. So, and that can be a barrier. So what we've done throughout the guide is done a bit of education. So we're talking to people about backyard critters. What types can you find? Is it actually safe? How can you do it? And you'll see these 3 examples are representative of home, neighbourhood and beyond, and the backyard and neighbourhood bird spotting. Now, bird watching is often something that we associate with the older demographic. So having this in there, we also had further resources which had ID charts for birds. And since the release of this guide, we've had several families post and share stories with us that their family are now into bird watching, and they've posted photos of them holding ID charts that we've linked to. Now, for us, that mindfulness and that togetherness of watching those birds in the backyard is something new. It's an opportunity. It's a small win during the pandemic. Some other examples that we've include nature scavenger hunts. Again, it's to the backyard, it's accessible. Nature memory cards, which are an art activity. So bringing in the arts and finding that, that beautiful balance of art and nature and as a family. So in the 7 elements that I talked you through around turn to nature, balance, screen time, etc., what we did is in each of those sections, we made sure that we were consistent in the way that we were recommending and suggesting ideas. And each section had 5 practical things that families can do. And we converted that into a list of 35 things to do as a family during COVID-19. And these 35 things is just pulled out from that resource and again made as a separate way to provide a tool, because some people may look at an 85-page resource and think, I don't have time for that, but they'll look at a simple list, which essentially sums it up. And we've been getting an amazing amount of traction from our supporters out there about the things they're doing, about how it is really helping them to realign their priorities to actually slow down. Now, in summary, obviously COVID is far from over. We have lots of things that we need to adjust to, a new normal. But I think the important thing to look at is there is an opportunity here for a new perspective. And it's a perspective where nature is a significant part of the way we manage and the way we support our own mental health and the people around us and our well-being. And what I would like to see is moving forward, organisations like Nature Play and similar organisations set the tone for a slower world that incorporates nature into the everyday, a slower world that sees people going to nature not just for exercise, but in a way that it can soothe them, in a way that it can put their senses back in order. So thanks for listening. And if you want to download and have a look at our guide, jump onto our website, jump onto our socials. We've got lots of other resources on there aimed specifically to help families during COVID. And for us, this is just the start. We initially were challenged, but now we're excited. And we want that enthusiasm to flow through the community as we're coming into that recovery phase. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jason. Well, thank you, all of you. Thank you, Megan, Nathan, Scott, and Jason. I'm just going to give small final thoughts. These presentations were amazing. It was an amazing reminder that play is essential for everyone, not just for kids. That we understand more and more that we need to reconcile our spiritual connection with nature and with our natural way of learning, which is play. That we know that play opportunities can occur everywhere, and it can be through a play bag, a guide, a walk through nature, or a temporary installation. That we will continue all of our work to keep creating opportunities for families and children, and that we might be able to keep the Maori mindset of stay standing and moving and even dancing, as Jason was saying, and that we all need to stay connected. Thank you very much for your amazing presentations and for sharing your experiences through the COVID-19 situation. We know that it's far from finishing, but we'll keep pushing. I think I just want to ask if we have time for questions, because there were some. So I don't know, the other guys, Amanda or Julie, do we have time for questions? Because there are some people from the public asking some. I think that we have no time, but our panelists have been very kind in sharing the emails in the chat box and to answer some of the questions there. So I want to thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you soon for the next webinar. Thank you again.